Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting live 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday at 5 p.m. And I will say, I'm sorry, I was a little bit mistaken. I thought the USFC White House was today. It's actually tomorrow, so we came on a regular time. I had said we were going to come on at 4 p.m. today, but
here we are.
Here we are.
And first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. Again, it is what helps us out the most. Also, we try to read most of your comments live during the show after each segment. However, we do pause the entire show for super chats, and that is also a great way to help us out. And we have memberships.
Absolutely. I was working on the set all morning today, and right before the show, and Nat's like, well, I don't like this. You have to fix this.
I didn't say you have to fix this. I said the curtain looks funny. And then you ripped paint off the wall.
There was a light leak on the curtain, so I had to fix it, and it got done.
Let us know if you can hear us, because apparently yesterday we were muted for the whole beginning. But I will start saying hello to Glenn Gunn, who says, good evening, Nat and Guy. Good evening. Hope you're happy. Hope you're well. Happy Saturday. Says, I'm moving tomorrow. Sunday will be shining on Albertans. Sun will be shining on Albertans on Sunday, just because I freaking hate moving. Yeah, that didn't make sense. No.
I think everybody hates moving. Here in Mexico, it's not quite as bad because movers are actually really cheap. Mm-hmm. So you can get somebody to do it for you, and they bring a whole team of people. It's absolutely insane. I remember we've had to move once since we've been here, and it was a lot easier moving here than it was in Canada.
Yes. And Glenn also says, hate moving, and the fact that we will have a sunny day tomorrow in Alberta. That's good. Silverfeet, hello. Thank you for being here. And says all you have to do is read his book, Values. Enough said. Not sure who.
Yeah, that's Mark Carney.
Oh, okay. Got it. Sorry.
How did you not know that?
My brain, it's Saturday. Justin GP, hello, says, I booked up early for work just to watch your show at 4 p.m.
Oh,
just kidding. LOL.
Oh, okay.
And Matt from Freedom Calendar says, hey, folks, hello, and thank you for being here as well. Should we start?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have breaking news?
No breaking news today. Straight into Alberta Stay Free. And a lot of people don't like our breaking news stinger, so
True.
They'll be happy.
It will be changed soon. Next 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And let's start with Andrew Bucage, I guess, says mission number 1 or number 2, I guess, is complete. I have decided to leave the other flag up and not going to stoop to their level. Alberta independence is the best choice for all Albertans to ensure a prosperous and free future for the younger generations. Thanks for looking.
Yeah, and this was just a fantastic little clip of a father and son putting up the Alberta flag and not taking down the Canadian one, showing a little bit of respect there.
All right, little skipper and I got the flag up, sitting much, much higher than the Canada flag, but we are going to leave that one behind, clean up our mess, and then get back in the canoe.
And go home.
And then go home. Thanks for looking. All right.
That's a really cute image right there. That could be a poster all in itself.
That's absolutely fantastic. And it's good to see a father doing something with the son involving Alberta there.
True. And then placing the flag higher than the Canadian one, but leaving the Canadian one because, again, we know how the forever Canadian people always react on what they've been doing and trying to take down signs and down Cory Morgan's posters and everything else. So,
well, it's not going to be surprising to me when somebody goes out there and takes down the Alberta flag, and then we're just going to have to go back out there and put it back up.
Yeah. Hopefully someone has like some sort of camera fixated on there so we can see who it is. But let's moving on to Chris Scott saying, quote, imagine your share of government waste, 6,000 collected in $20 bills. It would fill 56 shipping containers. Half of Alberta's $28 billion overpayment goes to Quebec, and to visualize the scale of the money lost.
Yeah, I think people just don't realize how much money governments around the world are shipping out, but especially the Alberta government to the federal government, who then ships it overseas, launders that money through Ukraine and other foreign causes, whether it's LGBTQ NGOs. I mean, we can go down the litany of different organizations. We kind of go over it on a daily basis here, but let's hear from her.
We toss around the word billions so much when we talk about government waste and taxes these days that I think we've actually been disconnected from the scope of how much that money actually is. So let's imagine for a sec that the government decided to collect that $28 billion that we overpay from Albertans each year, and they wanted to collect it directly from us in $20 bills. So a semi-truck with a big shipping container pulls up to your door and asks for your share, your $6,000, say. You go to your stash and you count out $320 bills, and they add that to the stack in the shipping container. And then they go to your spouse, and that person has to count out the same. And then each of your 2 children. And then they go to your neighbor and everyone in your community until they've reached everyone across the entire province, counting out $20 bills to send to Ottawa. At the end of that collection period, we will have filled 56 shipping containers full of Alberta's money. Every 2 of those shipping containers represents $1 billion. So those shipping containers are going to drive away with Albertans' $20 bills in them, 56 of them, $28 billion, and half of those are going to go directly to Quebec. Just a little visual to realize how much money we are giving away. And imagine what that money could do if it stayed in Alberta.
Yeah, and I'll kind of say another thing, because I've been watching a lot of EU politics lately, and people are waking up to this tax scam. In the United States and Canada, there was no taxes until the World Wars. Then the World Wars, it was supposed to be on the 1%, and it just snowballed absolutely out of control. Trump's trying to reverse a lot of that now, and so is Ron DeSantis in Florida, by taking away property taxes and things like that. That would be an absolute fantastic start. But Canada in general needs massive tax reform. The reason the government loves taxes is because the more taxes, the more power they absolutely have to have a bigger police force, bigger military. They're trying to build a secondary government here, and that's where a lot of this money is starting to go.
And again, a lot of those, all those taxes, especially those imposed during the wars, were supposed to be temporary. When is the temporary over? Has it been enough time when we've had these temporary taxes put on, honors taxes put on us? But also I was thinking, because she was talking about shipping containers, it's funny because we moved all the way from Vancouver to here and shipped all our stuff, essentially years and years worth of life. And that was only like a quarter of one of those giant shipping containers. So it's insane to think them all filled up with that much money. And that visual representation should be a stark reminder of what you're actually losing by staying in Canada.
Well, also the other visual representation is economies around the world that have a similar natural resource factor as Alberta, and all those countries have either no taxes or extremely limited taxes on their citizens. So we know how Alberta would look unless we had a completely corrupted government. There should be no taxes on citizens, taxes on natural resources, and corporations only, I would assume.
But next, let's go to David Creighton saying, quote, Alberta independence advocate Jeff Rath tells me what he thought of my interview with Premier Daniel Smith. This might shock you.
And then I watched your program, your interview the other day. And again, she just looks right into the camera. God love her. She's one of the best communicators I've ever seen. But she can lie with a completely straight face. Like when she's talking about the UCP being a Federalist party and how 99% of the people voted for the principles of the party and the UCP, is Federalist. In fact, both the president of her party, Rob Smith, and Peter McCaffrey, who was very involved in the merger process, and actually other people that I know are involved in the merger process, they all said that the one article that was voted down by an overwhelming majority of both PCs and Wild Rosers, right, was the suggestion that Alberta, the UCP, be a Federalist party committed to keeping Alberta in Canada. That did not make it into the party constitution. It was voted on and expressly rejected. Danielle's been told that by the president of the party. She's been told that by other people that was there. She knows that's not true, right? But she still looks at all your viewers in the eye and says, oh, yes, it's whatever.
And this is extremely true what he's saying. It seems like Jeff Rath is becoming more and more right every day. We need to get Danielle Smith out of there. She recently did the interview with The Fringe. That was a complete disappointment. She just wordsmithed everything, made the interview kind of get drawn out. The Fringe only had 25 minutes to interview her. I think if he would have known that she was going to play it like that, he would have hit with the hard-hitting questions right off the bat. I only think he got to about half of his questions. This gives us a heads up the next time she tries to do an interview with somebody from Alberta Independence. Start with the toughest questions first and just go from there. It's not normally how you would conduct an interview because you want to be cordial and things like that. But with Danielle Smith, we need to hit her with the hard-hitting questions first because we actually need answers. And we may have to interrupt her as well to kind of get clarification on things because she's saying she's repealed 8 of the 9 bad laws. That's just completely untrue. But Jeff Rath's completely right about Danielle Smith here.
Founding principles that Alberta must remain in Canada. So until we change our founding principles, it's a lie. You know, and God bless her. I mean, you know, it's hard not to like her. I mean, really, you know. But oh my God, that girl fly.
Well, I guess that gets me to the question I was going to ask you a few minutes ago. Is that how secure is her hold on the leadership? I asked her this yesterday. I said, you know, I know you're in a very difficult position as a federalist leading a party with a majority of the membership and the voters who are clearly in favor of Alberta independence. But how do you possibly maintain your position as leader when there are going to be so many people saying you're going in the wrong direction? So, in your opinion, how secure is her hold on the leadership of that party?
Oh, not very secure at all. And I mean, it was one of the, you said to her yesterday, and again, I was taking notes because I wanted to be a little bit more under control this morning. But anyway, you know, you said to her, Jeff Rath says, you know, that it's over 65%. Well, I want to clarify, Jeff Rath doesn't say over 65%. Angus Reid did a recent poll of UCP members, and their number was 64%. And what everybody needs to remember is that our people that support Alberta independence, since Carney, you know, got the banks to seize people's bank accounts and, you know, do all the dirty things that he did during the conflict, our people don't answer polls, right? So I would suggest that the number amongst the UCP is much higher, probably 70 to 75%. Like there was a recent leaders dinner in Calgary on June 5th, right?
And if that is the case, we need to make sure that's hardened support when we take a run at Danielle Smith, because if we take a run and fail with a leadership review, it's going to be hard to oust her after that. We really need to run a campaign for October 19th simultaneously to running a campaign to oust Danielle Smith after October 19th, which there's a leadership review we can call shortly after that. So if we leave her in power there, she's going to draw this thing out to 2.5, 3 years. That's exactly the answer she's given to the Fringe, as well as other interviews she's got done. She's not budging on that. So if she's not going to budge on that, we need to not budge. There has to be a red line in the sand. We're not waiting over 2 years for a binding referendum that may never come.
Especially because at that point, it just becomes a lot harder. Right now, the timing and the positioning that we have is a lot better than it will be in 2 to 3 years. And I think they know that, and they're acting upon that information too. Sorry.
Right. And I've heard from people that were there were only 20 or 30% of the people in the room that were politely applauding Danielle. Virtually no one sang the Canadian national anthem. They were just stony-faced listening to Danielle talk. Because, and a lot of this is a hangover from the MOU, and people are just sick and tired of, you know, all of her lies are finally catching up to her, and she's really losing credibility, you know, with the base. I mean, I used to say that she was, you know, like a drunk lighting cigars with $100 bills in terms of the way she burns her political capital. I mean, this time she's literally taken all of her political capital, put it in a pile, poured gasoline on it, and lit it on fire, right? And then, and not only did I have people in the room that were telling me that, you know, the room was like 70% against her. You know, I've heard from people that know Rob Smith's family. Rob was the president of the UCP, and Rob was telling his own family that that Danielle couldn't read the room and didn't understand that the leaders' dinner in Calgary was about 70% independence. And that's, you know, and Rob is, you know, not really happy with Danielle right now because she recently pantsed him in public and gave him a bare bottom spanking, right? Because Rob said that the, you know, that the UCP was going to remain neutral during the election campaign. And Danielle promptly went out on Chad and QR77 and whatever and said, I am the leader. My caucus is for federalism. My cabinet is for federalism. All of my members are.
And the fact that she was telling members of her own caucus in leadership roles that she was going to remain neutral, because that was the right decision there. If she would have remained neutral, she would have maintained all of her political capital. She's burning that now, and the nationalists definitely aren't going to vote for her. The nationalists aren't even don't even have membership. So when that leadership vote takes place to oust her, it's going to be very, very interesting what happens.
That's what we were continuously saying as well.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a good chance we can oust her. The problem is we can't let her consolidate power within the UCP and just do nothing for the next 5 months. We have to run our campaign at a simultaneous time. We're working on UCP members to kind of get her out and get a leadership review as soon as the October 19th that ballot takes place.
Speaking of members, though, thank you so much to Michael Drader for the 5 gifted memberships. And the following people, please thank Michael Drader as well. Okay, Kathy Hopkins, JKR1973, Crazy Genie, Mr. Drew Magoo, and Vern Thomas as well. So thank you so much, Michael Drader, for that. And everybody, thank Michael Drader too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 2 days in a row. He had some big casino winnings. He said he had a good time there.
True. But let's finish that video we were watching with Jeff. But yes, we've been saying it would have been so easy for Danielle Smith to remain neutral and say, I'm upholding democracy. I'm not going to take a side. I'm letting both sides have it out and go vote and actually be a democratic process. But no.
Well, it really seems like she's burned bridges or burned her political capital on both sides. There's only one real option for her, and that's to go to Ottawa and leave Alberta in her rear view mirror. Because I think if there's a leadership review, I don't think she's going to fare very well at this point. We'll have to kind of see what happens. But I think there's going to be a lot of resentment that builds up over the next 5 months, especially after that interview she did with the Unacceptable Fringe.
Federalist, we will be campaigning, blah, 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 right? So she's literally charted a course where on the most important issue of Alberta's time, our entire history, the most important issue of our day, Danielle is deliberately campaigning against the wishes of more than 2/3 of her base, easily more than 2/3 of her base. So, you know, and I was having a conversation about this, you know, a while ago with Pierre, or Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, right? And he says, Jeff, what's up with that in Alberta? Like, if we had a leader in Quebec that was that far offside of their membership on such an important issue, we throw him out of office. Like, how's Danielle holding on to her position, right? So I think it's a really good question. I don't think she's going to have a very comfortable summer. I think if she keeps looking at people in the eye like she just did on the program and lying to their face like she did about the founding of the UCP, which all of us know is, you know, is nonsense, right? And that she's literally lying to us. The more she does that, the more she's going to alienate herself from her base, and it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, she's going to have a very tough time come October.
Mm-hmm. But it's also interesting there, Jeff was saying, Pierre Plamondon was asking how is the UCP still tolerating this if her apparent values are so far away from what most of the, not just the leadership, but also the members want. And I will say once again, I sound like a broken record, but stop being so Canadian. It's because people are being too Canadian.
Well, absolutely. But she is very popular in Alberta, especially even to this day through the polling. The problem for her is going to be the leadership review is with inside the UCP and the memberships. And there has been a huge dramatic play from the independence movement to buy memberships. And that chess piece is still in action. We're continuing to buy memberships. And when that leadership review comes, she's going to see the power of action with the independence movement.
And I think specifically, she might have gotten a bit too comfortable with being so well liked for everything that she was saying she was going to do one day, which she's still asking people about in this upcoming referendum. She still hasn't done the things that she got elected to do.
Well, I think she's looking at her polling and she's thinking, I'm safe, not realizing it's actually the UCP memberships that are going to decide that.
True. But lastly, let's go to Lee Kenton and Tell saying, quote, Canada is the last holdout on gender ideology, while other countries, including the USA, the UK, and Europe are moving on-ish, I would say. Canada is doubling down on 76 genders, men and women's spaces, and irreversible child mutilation, I will say.
Yeah, and Mark Carney's child fits right into this demographic as well. I don't see him budging on this one whatsoever. This is one of the big issues that we will be voting on culturally within Alberta on October 19th. And let's not forget it. Just because the rest of the world has moved on, and I disagree with him here, I don't think they've moved on. I think they've put that on pause, waiting for Donald Trump to either lose the midterms or lose the next election, and then try to reactivate all this garbage if they can get a Gavin Newsom or somebody else in office there.
Look, it's time to move on from gender ideology, Canada. The US has moved on. The UK, which is seeing a civilizational decline right now, even they have moved on from gender ideology. The Scandinavian countries, which are the most left-wing countries on the planet, they've moved on. Europe, the most woke continent on the planet, they've moved on. Canada is the last holdout on gender ideology. Canada is the last holdout on this idea that there are 76 genders. Canada is the last holdout on this idea that men can go into women's sports, women's change rooms, and women's bathrooms. Canada is the last holdout on this idea that children can consent to permanent and irreversible gender transitions. The whole world is moving on.
And the reason Canada is not going to move on from this is all legislated. They've managed to get it all in law. It's going to be extremely hard to get all this stuff reversed. Even if you can get a Pierre Poilievre or somebody like that in, the judiciary is going to stop it because they are ideologically aligned with all this garbage.
And it's one of the reasons why I say it would take generations to actually see the change that you would want to see if, for example, a Pierre Poilievre got in.
not Canada. And I don't think that's going to change as long as the Liberals are in power, because the Liberals, the federal Liberals, are the most woke party. So yeah, I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. And I think Canada will only start to move along with the rest of the countries moving away from gender ideology when we have a new government.
Yeah.
And even then, it would take too long.
Even then, it's not, because the judiciary, there will be small moves made if there is a new government. But the problem is the way Mark Carney has completely disrespected the system of government that he is within. All the power is now consolidated with the federal government rather than the provincial and local governments. And he has made giant leaps forward when it comes to ideology and the judiciary. If Pierre Poilievre gets in there, I'm assuming he's going to respect the structure of the governmental system. And if he does that, it's going to be almost impossible to reverse a lot of the stuff that Mark Carney did, because he did it in a very illegal fashion.
But now let's go to your comments and then into Alberta.
And it wasn't just Mark Carney, sorry. It was also mainly Justin Trudeau.
Yep, and everybody else that was surrounded them. Justin GP says, I like your breaking news thing, but apparently a lot of people don't. So we'll change it a little bit.
I liked it as well, so...
Glenn Gunn asks Michael Drader again, are you nuts? But thank you so much, Michael Drader, and also says good on you. And Michael Drader says more casino winnings, 2,500 this time, but save some of it.
My God, this guy's got the luck of the Irish here.
Savings, yes.
By the way, what do you play? I used to play Texas Hold'em, but
I don't understand any of them.
Yeah.
So. Don Alex says hi, NNG, and everybody else. Hello, thank you for being here on Freedom Calendar. Max says the sound in Tanya Clemence's vid is so awesome. For the record, I provide the sound for Let's Talk Alberta events, and I stream as well. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So go follow Freedom Calendar or Max on Freedom Calendar, because he is doing that very important task of recording a lot of these, if not most of these events, and taking the time to do that, but also having the appropriate equipment to be able to do it properly.
And it's a lot of time and sacrifice, because there's a lot of travel time between these events. They're in small towns, and it is a long distance from town to town.
Mm-hmm. And William Obel says, howdy, Nat and Guy. Hello, and thank you for being here. DeBilver says, hi, Nat and Guy, and everyone else. Hello, and thank you for being here as well. And hold on, where are we? Troglodyte Hello says, LOL, I have no idea how to allow it. I'm too old school, because they've been trying to get Troglodyte a membership. That's why Michael Trader says he keeps trying to get... that's why he keeps getting memberships, but for some reason I don't know how to activate it for yourself either, but there should be a button in there somewhere.
Where
are we? DeBilver says Jeff said he wants to see Alberta separation, and then he said he'd be retired and spend time with horses and his daughter.
Yeah, I think he's starting to calm down a little bit, right? Especially in the last few interviews. I've seen a change within Jeff Rath as well. But you know what? I like the hard Jeff Rath just as much as I like the more softer versions. And it's time that we maybe start having more of a Jeff Rath attitude, not within Alberta independence and not causing infighting, but not taking one step back and starting to push forward. We have to shorten this timeline. After October 19th, we can't accept 2 to 3 years for a binding referendum.
Mm-hmm. And again, being less Canadian.
Yeah.
Michael Drader says, autistic mind roulette is my love. So,
roulette.
Is that the one with the little ball?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say something else. There was some news that came out that was very encouraging. The Alberta government is going to do a research paper on the impacts that independence would have if it was successful. A lot of people thought that the economists and things she was going to put on that panel actually were going to be heavily nationally biased or federally biased, but it's actually the other way. 2 of the people that she's put on there so far are actually outright in favor of Alberta independence. So that paper could end up looking a lot like the already researched APP paper that came out.
True. Glenn Gunn says, no woke left here in Alberta. Well, in the cities, and then you never know as well.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute. There is a lot of woke within Calgary and Edmonton, and if we let it continue to fester, they're going to take over the entire voting demographic, much like what happened within British Columbia with Vancouver and Victoria. Those 2 demographic alone basically dictates the rest of the province. Most of the province of British Columbia, the interior and the northern half, is more like Alberta than it is like BC, but the voting habits are extremely left because of the population density of both Victoria and Vancouver.
And Sean, hello, Sean, says, sounds like someone doesn't appreciate all the additional letters to our special group of MMW2 LGBTQIAA+ community.
And he writes it every time just to make
Yes,
you
thank
say
you,
it.
Sean. Michael Drader says, ball goes one way, wheel turns the other. Stimulus for the mind is mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Never understood how that works either. That's all luck, essentially, right? Like picking the right little thing it falls into.
Yeah.
Sean says Canada is just a real big Belgium. And too big as well. And
Well, Belgium and the rest of the EU is going down a very dark path. They have been signing away a lot of their rights to the EU and signing away their sovereignty in the process. The most recent one happened yesterday where they signed away their immigration sovereignty. They no longer get to decide who and how many immigrants come into most of these EU countries. I think this was the hammer that the EU was really waiting to drop. They've been preparing it and building thousands of facilities all over the EU, hundreds of facilities in Ireland alone.
the infrastructure. Bruce Newhouse says research papers can take years to achieve fruition. Or to come out, I guess.
I think they're going to want to get the research paper from the Albertan government. They put a harder deadline on it because Keith Wilson has a research paper coming out as well. And if Keith Wilson is the only one that comes out with this series of white papers, we basically control all the statistics. Meaning if we're doing an interview or debate and we recite statistics done by experts outside of Alberta and inside of Alberta, we will control all statistics within a debate or within an interview. So they want to have something to counter that with.
Justin Jabi says, I am woke. I mean, I woke up early for the show, but Guy was late because he got the day wrong and when the UFC thing was. And Charlotte says, the real pandemic is a woke mind virus. And that one doesn't go away as easily. There's a lot of other things you need to do to actually get rid of it. But now let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Is it working now?
No.
He said his iPad is acting weird. Don't know what he wants me to do while we're in the show. But let's start with the Western Standard saying, quote, again, Alberta appoints panel to study economic impact of independence ahead of the referendum.
And maybe click on the thread. I didn't read the whole thread of this, but I actually started researching off of that to look who was actually running these research studies.
To go into the article?
Yeah.
Let's see if it lets us.
Oh, no, there should be a thread there.
It says link in thread. There's only a link.
Oh, okay, never mind.
That's the link, but...
Okay, we can go to the next story. I will say this: two experts that have outrightly supported Alberta independence. It's going to be very interesting how that paper actually goes back. I think it's a coin toss right now how that one goes. But I think we all know how the Keith Wilson white papers are going to go, and those are the real important ones. And we already have the APP that did a lot of this research.
A twink. Northern Perspective says, quote, self-sabotage. Economist Catherine Swift says Carney's USMCA strategy may be intentional self-sabotage. This isn't a carnival and Canadians don't need a Carney playing games. They need Carney to get the deal he promised during the election, which in my opinion, at least, he can't get anymore.
When we talk to people in the administration, this story's come out a few times, and I never believe 100% of anything anybody tells me. Everybody's got politics, everybody's got spin. But when I talk to a number of people in the US that are involved with this, they say the Canadians keep coming to us with proposals that they know we're going to reject. So they come with kind of phony proposals so they can say, well, we're trying, but they come with items that are absolutely obvious. The U.S., things that they know are off the table. So they're not negotiating in good faith is basically what that comes down to. And they have been postponing it. When we see Mexico, for instance, it's been on the ball for the last year. We've been ragging the buck. We haven't been showing up. We haven't been negotiating. So that would be numero uno for sure. But getting our house in order. Carney likes to talk about, things we can control. Well, Mark, we can control getting rid of the North BC tanker ban. We can control getting rid of the industrial carbon tax. This idiotic pipeline you're talking about where you're going to impose a multi-billion-dollar cost on the industry. The stupid, the whole stupid so-called Pathways project with the carbon capture and so on is an absolute non-starter. Even Martha Hall Finley, a former Liberal and now very involved in energy sector research, says there is absolutely zero reason to have this ridiculous carbon capture project, which is estimated at $16 to $20 billion. And of course, this will be imposed on Canadian taxpayers as well, because I think some of the money is going to have to come out of the public purse, which it should not. So that would be when we talk to people.
And I think Mark Carney is waiting for the cancellation of the USMCA, and he's doing everything he can do to sabotage that. And he can declare a national emergency at that point. He'll be endowed with all kinds of powers. And I think that's going to be the time that you see him turn towards natural resources and the federalization of those natural resources and the approval of those projects. But the approval of those projects coming through way of financing through the federal government, and a lot of the money going into the federal government's coffers as he lines closer and closer with the EU.
That's what I was going to say. As this announcement of no new cooperation with the EU, aside from the other new cooperation with China that he keeps touting or kept touting until he said "Make America Great Again," which made no sense either. But the moves are very strange. But if you line them all up, the picture starts becoming clearer and clearer, especially when you also look at the circumstance and the situation between Russia, Ukraine, and what's going on with Europe and the involvement there as well.
Yeah, I mean, he has these natural resources already sold. There's multiple nations across the world. I mean, China is his best buddy at this point. They're going to buy massive amounts of minerals, oil, natural gas, you name it. But he needs a national emergency, and he needs to be able to pitch that national emergency. And Orange Man Bad works for him every time with these Canadian liberals. And that's how he's going to pitch this thing, I believe.
Yes, elbows up. And then on your knees. And
it might be a smarter move for Donald Trump to go over to a year-on-year review, because then it's going to be harder for him to declare a national emergency.
True, because then it's not fully canceled.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, sorry. We'll go there in a second, but thank you so much, Troglodyte, for joining as a member and supporting us monthly. And thank you to my co-trader that I was trying to get that membership on for you, but I guess somehow we figured it out.
Yeah,
thank you so
fantastic.
much, Troglodyte, and glad to have you on board as well. But as I was saying, Melissa says, quote, insane Canada sending 100 million?
100 million, yeah.
100 million to Palestine announced just now from Paris, France. 100 million. I'm sure Ukraine is next.
Well, Ukraine's already got theirs multiple times over. We're talking in the tunes of billions here. Sending another 100 million to Palestine when your country is breaking down in the way that it is. This is absolutely ridiculous, completely uncalled for. We're going to get nothing back for this money, except for a bunch of Palestinian refugees that are going to hurt our economy and hurt our citizens overall.
That too, but something we might get is, again, he admitted Palestine has the right to be its own country. So, I mean, Alberta has the right to declare its own independence maybe too, because, again, he already said that he's on board with new countries just popping up, and he even signed the whole thing saying he acknowledges that Palestine is its own country. So, I mean, we do have that precedent. Maybe that's where the money's going. But now let's go into your comments and then Alberta Personalities.
Yeah.
Let me find out where I was before. Glenga says, hold on. What does it say? Mickey Mouse, same thing. Mickey Mouse.
I don't know.
Michael Drader says, entirely based on fate, but the 35-1 odds for straight bets mean you can win big and fast.
Yeah, I used to play.
I don't trust myself.
I used to play a little bit of roulette. I had a scheme that I thought, you wait for it to hit black 6 times, and then you go with a small bet to do red, and then you just keep doubling the bet till red hit. But it didn't work very well. So then
Not financial or gambling advice, I guess.
So then I didn't gamble anymore after that.
I just numbers and me just don't do, and cards and me just don't mix. Justin GP says, my fault, sorry for that Western Standard. I'm not hanging up until they answer on Monday. Thank you so much. And again, we have tried, but it's more because we really appreciate the gesture as well from you, Jess. And Jess also says, Canadians going to them with phony proposals sounds a lot like an MOU. And what happened there as well?
Well, they're not even in negotiations. They're in pre-stage negotiations, which is just talks. Then they have to formalize those talks, then go into negotiations. It really looks like he's trying to sabotage this thing. He wants Trump to cancel the deal, national emergency, federalization of natural resources, and a lot of other things he's able to do when there is an economic emergency, which he can declare at that point. He can use the Emergencies Act at that point.
Sean says, Guy, come on. I keep telling you Carney is Yeltsin, not Putin. What did that mean? Okay. Michael Trader says, welcome to the club, Troglodyte. And Troglodyte says, I gave up on the freebie yet, but thank you for being here. Sean says, you will see more of Trump next year up north. I actually think Republicans will hold both. Democrats have done nothing to demonstrate that they would do anything but make things worse.
Yeah, I think Trump is more unpopular now. I really still like him a lot, but I think he's unpopular amongst Republicans. The problem is going to be now the Democrats are even more unpopular. So I don't see any way for the liberals to take over the House and Senate. And even with Trump's unpopularity, it's not extremely widespread. It's really just limited content creators online that are really starting to horseshoe in their political theories, or they're getting some kind of payment. That being said, Trump's not even on the ballot this time, so it's going to be very interesting what happens. Is it MAGA candidates or is it traditional rhino candidates that kind of come up in these midterms?
And Bruce Newhouse says, bingo, national emergency powers.
Yeah, and that's what he's looking for. And that's why he wants Trump to cancel it. Trump would be smart to put it on a year-to-year review, which would give zero confidence to any manufacturing corporations within Canada, and they would clear out to the United States. And then then Carney couldn't use Trump as the excuse.
But now let's go into Alberta Personalities, and then we'll continue reading all your messages.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Let's start with Billboard Chris saying, quote, you shouldn't have to hide your identity because you're Catholic, but that's the environment universities have created. Very purposefully, I would say. Credit to this man at Portland State for speaking up.
Yeah, and there was another clip. I didn't happen to grab it, but this man actually came up as another guy was just yelling in James Clue's face, Billboard Chris's face as well. It's a shame that you're having to cover your identity with this. We need to do this no more. We're going to have to stand up if we want to save our country. We want to save our children, and we want to save our own futures here.
Stop being so Canadian. Be Albertan.
And this isn't happening in Canada, but the sentiment is exactly the same in Canada, if it's not worse.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Don't talk to this guy. What's going on? For safety purposes, I don't want to give away my identity. That's okay. I don't want to give out my identity.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, of course. I agree.
Okay, you agree?
I agree.
And so why? So when you say for safety reasons, what do you think is going to happen if people know you agree with this?
I'm losing my scholarship, my internships, everything, man.
You think PSU will take away your scholarships and internships if you agree with this?
Yeah. So
you're taking a bold risk here coming to talk to us.
Yes, they will.
That is a false statement. Why do you feel? So you're taking a bold risk, but you still felt compelled to come and talk to us.
Yes.
Why do you feel so compelled to do that?
I don't want to be silenced anymore.
Good man.
I'm done.
Thank
you.
If anybody, we live in a country where the First Amendment states freedom of speech is for everybody, regardless of who you identify as, regardless of what you look like, anything. I feel like this has gone way too one-sided. I don't want to stand for that anymore.
Okay, and we can leave it there. I know it's hard to hear because we have noise cancellation and things like that on. That being said, it's the point that people are having to hide their identities. And the reason content creators can build audiences and things like that, and we are fairly successful when it comes to super chats and things like that, is other people use our voice to kind of get their message out. I understand a lot of people are in professional careers that they can't say anything. So the way they can be heard is through channels, by leaving comments, by giving super chats, by supporting channels that have a similar voice to what you have.
And we understand it because at some point, at least for myself, I was on the same boat. I couldn't really say anything when I was working at schools within Vancouver because, again, what would they say? What would the repercussions be? And most of the people there would 100% not agree with me.
Absolutely.
So it also comes from understanding that being in that position and how frustrating it is. And especially in Canada, I think some of those voices that even want to speak up, like that young gentleman, aren't even there anymore. They've left now.
Yeah.
Or they've been well, how would you say it? Threatened to the point that they wouldn't even think about speaking up anymore.
Yeah, and they're going directly after people's jobs, and that's the thing. I mean, he's in school. I think that's even less of a threat, and he's scared to show his face. They're going after people's actual careers and getting them blackballed and fired.
But next, Tommy Robinson says, quote, Gen Z have grown up watching the invaders kill and rape our people right in front of their eyes, and they're
And
taking
you don't have to put the headphones on yet. We're going to talk about this for a moment. And I understand this is the Alberta Personality section, and both of these things weren't Alberta Personalities, but it's more about the people of Alberta are the personalities, and that's what I'm trying to show here. From the last clip, people are wanting to stand up. Here you have a young boy saying, I just want my country back. We need the people of Alberta to stand up. This clip may be hard to hear as well, but this other guy tries to say, oh, it's very complicated. It's a lot of economic issues. And the kid's just like, I just want my country back. And that's where we're at. Normal people just want their country back. They want the sanity back.
And it's also even sadder because people in Gen Z and the younger people didn't even get to know that country that now they want back. They've been told about it. They're able to see it on tape or on film, but a lot of them weren't even born till the 2000s. So they started growing up at a point where the countries were already in their managed decline, and now it's just increased even further.
These people are bad, this is the problem, but it's far more complicated. It's a socio-economic problem. I want my country back.
And the UK had an absolutely fantastic history, and it's being betrayed by its own government. Canada's being betrayed by its own government. Most Western countries are being betrayed by their own government. That's why the independence movement in Alberta is so crucially important, because it's a citizen-led revolution to take back the country that could inspire other citizens in other provinces and other regions of the world to do the same, saying, if the government's not going to make the change, we as the people will do it.
But now let's go to your comments and then to Alberta's Canada, we're already there. Todd says, good day, folks. Hello. Says, just picked me up a Cadillac John Deere push mover, self-propelled, cuts and bags like a dream. I'm guessing a grass.
Yeah, because the snow's clearing out now, so the grass is coming out. You go from snow blowers to lawnmowers.
Charlotte says, I have no grass, Todd, and I'm a happy man. Same here. Hold on. Todd says, nice little fenced yard with some grass. Nice for her. Oh, that's cute, though. I eventually do want to grow some sort of food of some kind, a tomato, or avocados come from trees. Those are harder to actually grow, but like mint or something really easy to do.
I got some basil for you.
Charlotte says, when speaking the truth is a revolutionary act. Exactly. And being able to show that and encourage, especially young people that do have that hearkening for an era that they didn't even get to live through is good. That's why I continue to say to the young people, this is your opportunity to actually help found a nation. How often can you do that? Never. You get to make history.
Well, and hate speech makes the truth an illegal act at this point. And that's why I think later on in the show, we're going to show a clip of some things maybe I don't agree with completely, but we need to be able to accept those things and say it's free speech. And as soon as we create hate speech, we've created the mechanism to silence people, and it's only going to be expanded from there. And we've seen governments all over the Western world embrace hate speech laws and spit in the face of free speech. And then they want to keep saying, well, we have free speech, except when this and accepts when that, and then they want to make another specialty group and another specialty class so they get to add more hate speech laws, take more freedoms away from the citizens.
Well, if there's an except, then it's not free.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
Completely free speech. Sean says Doug Ford was down in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia area and got zero reception from the White House, and even had a dinner with a very sympathetic free trade group. Canceled. Canada is toxic in Washington. And yeah, we talked about that yesterday, but exactly.
Yeah, we talked all about that. We put Doug Ford on the cover, and we covered 3 or 4 different articles about that. Yeah, they canceled on him. It was said that Donald Trump made the call and canceled that event completely. And on top of that, he went on mainstream media, did interviews, and he did not look good. He was completely trying to ass kiss, but then he had his hype man there that would come in directly after them and just start hating on Trump. So I don't even know what the point was there, to make yourself look bipolar, because that's what Canada is looking like right now.
And Charlotte says, does Doug Ford think Trump forgot about his Reagan video? What an idiot. And I fully agree. I mean, it hasn't been that long.
And again, I think it's looking more and more like they want Trump to cancel the USMCA so they can declare a national emergency here.
Justin GP says, grow a cow now. I do want to get a cow. Two cows because they're best friends. So they always have to be together.
I wanted to get a lot of raw milk and stuff like that. And BC, it's illegal. So you have to do cow sharing. You have to buy a piece of the cow. It's this crazy thing. I was looking into it, but then I said it's easier just to leave Canada at this point.
Exactly.
And now we can get raw milk in the actual stores here in Mexico if you go to a specialty store.
Yeah. Freedom Canada Max says elbows up dot execute. Exactly. And that's where most people are still at, and why they don't understand why they can't fully see what's really happening to the Canada they still think they live in that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Southeast Maximus says 40 minutes ago, made it, shared on X. Thank you so much.
Thank
you for being here.
And we're going to continue with our X account. I think we have one more week of doing some other things.
Prepping.
Prepping. And then the week after that, I'm going to start the X account up again. I have kind of paused putting all the articles that we do for the shows because I've been busy most of the day with building sets and building assets and things.
A 2.0 hello says, now pipelines are violence against Indigenous women. Everything's violence against everybody because they don't want to actually be able to do it until they can fully control it themselves and have it as a federalized project instead of. So they'll find ways to make it stop until it suits and benefits them.
Yeah.
The federal government.
And then they'll keep 90% of the money. They'll divvy out about 10 to 20% of that money to specialty groups and classes, one being Indigenous women, the other being LGBTQ, the other being Ukraine, this, that, and the next. And the people and the citizens of Alberta and these other countries that the federal government's going to pilfer these natural resources from aren't going to get the infrastructure and aren't going to get what they deserve from their own natural resources. And the odds are they're going to bring in mass immigrants to work these jobs, pay them low wages so they can accentuate the profits.
And hold on. Over on our UMBLE, Christus says, hello, dears, Alberta Independence. And yes, LF go, let's effing go. And says, good day, everyone in the NNG family. Danielle's sit down with Derek was absolute dog stuff.
Yeah, it was absolutely dog shit. I completely agree with that. Then again, he only had 25 minutes. I understand that he wanted to be cordial and things like that and keep that relationship open for another interview in the future. The problem with that is she really drew out every question and it was hard to get, because usually when you're interviewing somebody, you start off with the softball questions and you work into the harder questions. And he never had a chance to get into the harder questions, I believe. Hopefully he gets another interview and he starts off just with hard-hitting questions that can't be kind of drawn out.
Mm-hmm. And again, politicians are specifically Weasley for a reason. And career politicians even more so.
Yeah, and maybe have just short, simple questions and then have two variations of questions based upon her answers and kind of map it out you can kind of paint her into a corner.
Sean says, tomatoes are easy to grow except in San Francisco. Is that like a funny joke that I'm not understanding?
I don't know. I don't think they're hard to grow anywhere, though, but maybe it's a joke that I don't know either.
Todd says, tomatoes here are way better than... I hate tomatoes and I get acid reflux, but they're way better here than in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Because in Canada, it was all like mealy.
Yeah.
Grainy.
Well, I have to go get some tomatoes after this,
Speaking
by the way.
I need avocados. Todd says, John talking to Albertans' latest video was great on this free speech topic and the Christian perspective. Check it out, y'all. Thank you, and will do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to start leaning in heavy to Christianity and things like this. It's a community that should be easy to back us. I know we have a lot of Christian supporters, but man, we really need to lean directly into the churches here and use that as a fundamental base and build off of that.
But now, let's go to Alberta's Canada, where all of that has already been lost.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And let's start with Kirk Lubimov saying, quote, Mark Carney claims he didn't say what he said. the backpedal, saying, to be clear, if you look at the speech, I never advocated that all of a sudden there was going to be a band of middle powers, the M20 or something like that. But yes, he did.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And we're going to see both clips here just to make this clear. And this is probably his plan. It's confession through projection. That when he says M20, I guess that's what he's looking at.
To be clear, and if you look at the speech, I've never advocated that all of a sudden there was going to be a band of middle powers, the M20 or something like that.
Argue the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice. Compete with each other for favor, or to combine to create a third path with impact.
To be clear,
and it's funny because, a lot of people have started to point out that Canada is the only country in a recession in the G7 and the G20. So maybe the Gs are no longer working. So let's do the Ms, the middle ones.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not looking good. I think the EU is now realizing Russia's not an option as long as Trump's in office, and if JD Vance gets into office, they're not going to fight that war for him. And that $74 trillion was their bailout plan all along. And now they're looking at Canada as, let's just unite with Canada and we'll take their natural resources. Carney will hook us up with that.
But now let's look at our former retarded country and place where we used to live. Ryan Gertison says, quote, Canadians have got to be one of the most easily programmed people on earth. And yes, I've seen it live.
And this is going to be hard to hear, but basically they cheer for the Canadian flag, cheer for the Mexican flag, and then they absolutely boo the American flag. This is not the way you want to go. You're going to boo yourself right into an economic cliff and economic disaster here, and you're doing it with your elbows up.
The media simply has to tell them who to dislike, and the groupthink hordes take shape. It's sad. Yes, it is.
And you don't see the same reaction in the United States. A matter of fact, we had shown that clip at one of the hockey games where the Americans were singing alongside the Canadians for the Canadian national anthem. So
when the audio went out, yeah.
Yeah, there's not mutual disrespect. The disrespect goes one way, and I think it always really has. And the Canadian government has used the Americans for a long time and over-tariffed them. And then the Americans woke up, and now they want to call the Americans the bad guys. That's just not the way it is. There's been a ton of benefits for Canada over the years for having that economy right next door.
But also because during the past 20 years, I would say, but just specifically a little bit even earlier before that, this whole Canadian identity thing and the destruction of the Canadian identity started off with Canada saying, oh, we're always going to be better than the US. And that became one of the few identifying factors that could identify Canadians because they wanted to bring in this new multicultural stance and, oh, we're the first post-national country and we don't really have an identity other than hating the US and thinking that our healthcare system is the best. And from that, it kind of built out to the point where the media now propagandizes people to say, oh, just hate the US, we're better, even though Canada is falling apart, the only country in the G20 and G7 in a recession. I was just finding on Instagram, funnily enough, in the comments of a Mexican post about the Canadian World Cup, what's it called? The
World Cup.
Yeah, but when they did the show.
The World Cup.
Okay, the initial show. And a lot of people were saying, oh, Canada is such a much better country than Mexico, and complaining about the US and Mexico and how Canada is doing so much better. And I just had to say, it's the only country in the G7 and G20 currently in a recession, and people are suffering. A whole province wants to leave, and yet you don't really hear about this because the international media still wants that beacon of the multicultural globalist dream that is Canada, and that they're able to maintain outside of Canada. But within Canada, most people at least know are suffering at least a little bit.
The opening ceremony. I was trying to think about it. I just wanted you to go on with the story where I thought about it.
Thank you. The opening ceremony, which, by the way, their whole little World Cup thing broke down in the middle of it in Toronto. But next, Cosmin says that BC, NDP, MLA, and David Eor's Caucus, Lieutenant Rohini Arora wants you to be ashamed of calling yourself a British Columbian or a Canadian and instead identify as a colonizer. BC has done with the NDP shame tactics. We have an incredible heritage to be proud of.
This is the things that we are voting on for Alberta independence. If you want to keep your natural resources, you better do it now through Alberta independence. Otherwise, they're going to capture those natural resources in the name of First Nations, in the name of anti-colonization and things like that. They're going to come in for federalization of natural resources, and they're going to do it with a virtue shield.
Mm-hmm. Even if we didn't personally cause colonization, we live in a country shaped by it. That's why many non-Indigenous people, including myself, use the term settler, uninvited guest, or for white folks who self-describe as colonizer. When we self-refer as settlers, it's a signal to Indigenous people that we understand the history of colonization. And I urge all members here to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Even if we didn't...
Oh my, I don't know how they do this stuff with a serious face. I guess it's the billions of dollars they're getting behind closed doors.
Exactly. And the plan that they have to further use this kind of ideological push to their own ends. Specifically, the Liberals.
Canada is the one country that Canada is the one country for all these Western countries that are turning towards this communist model and turning its back on Western values that could actually pull it off if they manage to declare an economic emergency, federalize the natural resources. There's enough money there to support a communist government, where a lot of these other countries just don't have those natural resources to build that infrastructure that they're going to need. I'm not looking forward to that. That's why I've left the country already. Alberta needs to get its independence now before it loses that critical mass of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Walk, don't run to independence. No, run, don't walk to independence. There we go. I said it wrong. Jaden Xer says, quote, they sold Bill C-16 as a Protecting Victims Act. They always sell it as something that it's not. But it's not. While Canadians were told, hold on, why can't I move it? While Canadians were told this bill would crack down on deepfakes, coercive control, and IPV, and child disgustingness, the Liberals quietly inserted a broad safety valve that lets judges do essentially.
Yeah, basically they're easing up all kinds of sentencing regulations. It may be kind of hard to hear because there's music playing over it, and again, our noise cancellation kind of messes up these clips, but we'll hopefully, there's a lot of graphics that come up here to make it easy to understand.
Do you want me to finish reading the whole thing?
No.
Okay.
Bill C-16 Get Out of Jail Free Card is a poison pill that Canadian communities will once again be forced to swallow. The government's presenting Canadians with one bill while pursuing a very different objective beneath the surface. The government wants Canadians to believe that Bill C-16 is a major public safety initiative. It points to provisions dealing with deepfake pornography. It points to provisions with coercive control. It points to provisions dealing with intimate partner violence. All those measures are designed to attract support. But while Canadians are focused on those headlines, the Liberal government has inserted this poison pill. They call it a safety valve, a phrase carefully chosen because it sounds limited, reasonable, and harmless. But the government insists this power will only be used in exceptional cases. Yet when Conservatives proposed reasonable safeguards to ensure that outcome,
yeah, they're claiming that they're going to be tough on crime and they're increasing sentencing. They're doing completely the opposite when it comes to bills like this.
Like they usually do. I mean, we should know it by now.
Well, the EU does the exact same thing. They say they're doing one thing on the surface and they just build the new mechanism and do it over here. And then once you see that new mechanism they built, they just rebuild it over here. And you're constantly playing catch up and never able to fix the system.
Mm-hmm.
Safeguard was rejected. That objective became even clearer during committee study. Conservatives approached this legislative constructively because we recognize there are very good measures worth preserving. Our goal is not to destroy the bill. Our goal is to strengthen it and ensure that victims remain at the center of this legislation. We proposed safeguards that would have limited access to the safety valve to offenders with no prior record. We proposed ensuring that sentences would not be reduced below half of Parliament's mandatory minimum. We proposed excluding extortion offenses. We proposed excluding aggravated sexual assault. We proposed excluding serious child sexual offenses. We proposed excluding some of the most serious crimes that Parliament has already determined deserve firm sentencing consequences. Every one of those amendments was rejected. Conservatives also proposed...
Okay, and you can leave it there, but they're going to use this when they allow massive amounts of migrants. And again, they're going to start in 2027. They're having a little bit of a lull here because Trump is pushing back, and then they're going to ramp it up. And the next generation of migrants they're going to have is not these first generation migrants. They've set up the mechanisms to let their parents and their grandparents in, people that aren't going to be productively working in the society. It's just going to be an even larger drain on the society than the first wave of migrants were.
But now we'll go to your comments and then to Alberta and the world. Sean says, not just Indigenous women, but that whole alphabet group and multiple different groups that they've selected to be specialty groups and classes. Troglodyte says, love it when they first, the tomatoes and the birds. Hold on, where are we? Todd says, Danielle is fired. Me and Jeff Rat said so.
Yeah, and I think it's just about time. A lot of people are wanting to wait till after October 19th, so I guess that's when we're going to try to do it, hopefully.
Todd says, you can't vote Liberal in Canada and call yourself a Christian at the same time. Shame on them that do.
Yeah.
Especially because of the types of policies that the Liberals continue to try to bring in and how they're purposefully trying to destroy churches and Western values themselves.
Yeah, it's even worse. Like, it's one thing to call yourself a Christian but have these liberal values that spit in the face of Christianity, but it's a whole nother thing when complete churches are flipping to liberal ideology, and it's these captured churches that are in all the major cities across Canada. We've seen it firsthand. I mean, downtown Vancouver is just speckled with these things. They're almost like indoctrination centers at this point.
Essentially, that's what they are. Troglodyte says, I can't stand the Albozos, arrogant pricks. Yes. And Todd says, the Albozos have too much money for this to affect them. Sucks to be their kids and grandkids. Exactly.
Well, I think their kids and grandkids are going to inherit the houses and things like that. So that's going to continue for the next generation of voters.
But most of them, I mean, a lot of them don't even have kids because they got rid of them before they had to deal with them.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's true. I think for this new generation, yes, but the generation that actually owns a lot of the housing wealth and stuff like that, that generation of liberals actually did have kids, but that was the generation of liberals that shifted to this extremely woke progressive ideology later in life.
Because they got guilt-tripped into it.
Yeah.
With people calling them colonizers and saying you have to call yourself a colonizer or else.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to have to deal with the or else, so they just did it anyways. Again, spineless people. Don't be Canadian. Be less Canadian.
Be Albertan.
Be Albertan, exactly. And actually, by saying be Albertan, it actually shows what you value because we know what Albertans represent.
Yeah.
A2.0 says if people voted their religion, they would never vote Liberal.
And I was watching a think tank on YouTube today kind of talk, and it's like, oof, man, some of the propaganda that we fell for, it's like never talk about religion or politics at the dinner table or with somebody you just meet. But those are the issues that really matter. What they're trying to tell you is don't talk about the issues that matter.
And it's funny because in a lot of cases, a lot of couples, at least like 10, 20 years ago, would never discuss those kinds of things. And then when push came to shove, or they actually had to do something or talk about these hard topics, they would realize that they were completely incompatible.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think a lot of the divorces went up. Also, the ability and facility to get divorced.
Well, and when you start to try to raise children, a lot of these issues are tangential issues that come out when you raise that children. And then you see this absolute split. And a lot of men just didn't realize the women that they married.
Satis Maximus says, got so much hate on X today, but a lot of love too. Keep telling the truth. Who did? You did? Yeah. I'm going to go defend you. Again, I've been fighting in the comments all day today with people, so I will go defend you on X.
And I haven't been getting any hate on X lately because we haven't been posting for last week. We got one more week before I start the count up and start getting the mass hate again.
A2.0 says, I am for getting rid of Danielle Smith, but it has to be at the right time.
Yeah, and that time is 1 week after October 19th with a leadership review period. If you wait till longer than that, you're literally sabotaging your own Alberta independence movement at that point. You have to take the shot even if you don't think you can win it. We have to know what we need to do after October 19th. First, we win the vote, then we have the leadership review at the UCP.
And Satis Maximus says, call out the hate. They try to rationalize why they boo Trump. They are mentally ill. I would say they are fundamentally mentally ill.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to rationalize with them, but sometimes it's fun to, to yell at them too. Let's go, or give them the actual real truth that they can't stand. But speaking of, let's go to Alberta and the world.
Drag it, huh?
What's wrong with your thing?
Nothing. Let's continue. My iPad's looking-
His iPad.
That's where my notes are for the
Not
show.
his thing. Okay, that's good. Starting with active report saying, quote, in my country, I can walk with my flag wherever I want. A man is prevented by the police in Berlin from walking around with the German flag. As a reminder, the flag stands for, quote, unity, justice, and freedom.
Yeah, and this clip's going to be in German, and the original post was in German as well, but all across the EU, but especially in Germany, they do not want you having a German flag. It's a sign of racism, they say. It's a sign of the far right, they say.
Nicht mit der Unterfahrt, das nehme ich da aus. Die Zeichen, die von dem Gesamtplakat, wir gehen nur vom Bahnhof dahin. Jetzt, wie gesagt, eine Möglichkeit. Und ob ich jetzt die Fahne da habe oder ob ich da einen Schuh dran habe, damit die Gruppe weiß, wo ich bin. Nee, das müssen wir überlassen. Und ich laufe in meinem Land mit meiner Flagge so lange rum, wo ich will, kann ich nicht. Ein Wiedersehen. Fassen Sie mich nicht an! Fassen Sie mich nicht an! Fassen Sie mich nicht nochmal an!
Pause it for a quick second. And this is supposed to be the new German flag. The old German flag was a lot of things. Now they're trying to say the new German flag is representative of the old one. This is supposed to represent peace, unity, and a lot of other things. Now they don't even want you waving this flag. Absolutely ridiculous. It might be only a matter of time before the other flag gets drawn out if they don't let people even have the national German flag. We see these flag protests popping up all over the EU, especially they first started in Britain with the raise the flag protest.
But it's also retarded because Germany's just about to play in the World Cup. So what, you can't wave the German flag for the team if you're watching the... It makes no sense.
Hier wollen wir 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Polizisten. Habt ihr sie doch alle? Wie gesagt, die könnten sich hier stehen. Wenn ich die Fahne wegkriege, dann ist es spät. Da liegen mindestens 3 Mann. Aber jeder muss nicht mal anmelden. Aber ja, auf dem Weg wie
Okay, you can leave it there. And what do you got? Like 6 police officers over a flag for national pride?
And also a man that didn't look like he was very, dangerous.
No, absolutely ridiculous. And Germany has some very strange laws because of their history with their original flag.
They had a lot of PTSD.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of indoctrination within their schools. They were much ahead of the curve because of what happened then. They instilled a lot of shame into the children because they didn't want what happened before happening again.
And they were able to because of that.
Yeah, they were able to because of that. And every time I start looking into German schools and a lot of German politics, there's a lot of strange laws and other things. I'm like, how is that legal? Then I look into it and it's completely illegal. And that mechanism was built there because of what happened in the Second World War.
And again, there's the exact same guilt and shame that they were bringing with the whole colonizer thing to Canada and the First Nations thing, using that guilt and shame to be able to shape the public and the public opinion and to what's it called? Not quell, but like shut up the public.
Yeah, quell.
And here in Mexico, they're trying to do very similar things as well now. They're starting with this whole little discourse on the indigenous and the First Nations people and the this and the that. But I think most Mexicans won't, because here in Mexico, most people are fully mixed in some ways. So, I mean, there's both strains. You can't claim to be either a colonizer or colonized because you're both.
Well, and a lot of these governments that are left, these leftist governments, because there's been a huge right-wing push to take over a lot of countries in Central and South America and even within the EU. But the leftist governments that are still in power, they're realizing the flag is a very powerful symbol, and they're trying to change it to a symbol of national socialism, much like Mark Carney did within Canada to recapture the flag back from the conservatives. But a lot of other countries are starting to try to do the same thing. Claudia Sheinbaum's trying to do the same thing with the Mexican flag. She's not being as successful. She's not as successful as Mark Carney was in Canada, though.
True. But next, Michelle Rampel-Garnay says, quote, wonder why Elon Musk, who is Canadian, decided not to build his civilization-changing historic levels of wealth, creating companies in Canada. It will remain a mystery because the Globe and Mail says SpaceX is set to make Elon Musk the first trillionaire. Here's how to properly hate him. Oh, great. Written by Chris Gay, funnily enough.
And you can go back to the top here, and this is not just Elon Musk. The majority of people that open businesses that are Canadian citizens actually open them in the United States now. And if they don't open them in the United States, once they become profitable and successful, they move them to the United States. This is well over 50% of businesses and business owners in Canada. If they're able to, they move them to the United States.
And but right now, for example, we've had announcements because of bills C-22 and C-9 and all the other ones that they wanted to start pushing on censorship. The creators, and I was trying to remember the name of that VPN company that made a whole thing about we can't stay within Canada, number one, because we're being taxed to no end, where we actually cannot make a profit or do anything to move forward with a company.
And it's not just taxes,
but also
though.
censorship.
Yeah, it's not just taxes or censorship. It's different kinds of legislation that affect every single different industry. If it's the streaming industry, we just seen the controversy with that. Rumble moved out years ago because for their industry, it was a free speech issue. But for just your average businesses that don't have these extra forms of legislation, taxes in Canada is enough. It's one of the highest taxed rates on businesses worldwide.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense to be entrepreneurial.
Well, especially when you have the United States right to yourself. You have your option. You have your out. And they welcome entrepreneurs there. They actually embrace entrepreneurs like Elon Musk.
Speaking of, Bill Maher says, quote, Elon is now a trillionaire. Now I give Elon his props. He has created amazing things. SpaceX is amazing. So is Tesla, Neuralink, and Starlink. Neuralink, I wouldn't say so. Elon owns a company that can rewire your brain. It's called Twitter or X.
But none of that will be remembered in the future. What we will remember in the future from this week is what happened in the stock market today. SpaceX, are you familiar? That's, yes, the company, one of Elon Musk's companies, went initial public offering. You can buy stock at it now. Biggest one ever. And Elon is now a trillionaire. A trillionaire. Now, I give Elon his props. He has created amazing things. Yes, SpaceX is amazing. So is Tesla, Neuralink, Starlink. Elon owns a company that can rewire your brain. It's called Twitter. But a trillionaire. I mean, now, Elon says he will use his wealth to get to Mars because he believes one thing above all: if you have to leave Earth to avoid California taxes, you do what you have to do. But none of that will be.
And I will say this: a lot of people will say, "Oh, he's a trillionaire. The price. We need to tax his company. We need to do this." Elon Musk, when you look at him now, I don't agree with all of his businesses like Neuralink and stuff like that, but he lives in one of his tiny homes, and what he uses all of his money on is to leverage to buy new companies and to create new industries and things like that. So it's not like he's spending it on gluttonous means. He's actually spending it. Well, if his mission is to go to Mars, but he's actually spending it to dig tunnels with the Boring Company, the Flamethrower Company, a lot of different other companies. So he just reinvests that money. That's why one company with one good entrepreneur, they don't just cash out that business. Usually they continue to build more innovative businesses.
Exactly. And I will also say he saved Twitter. I mean, yes, it might shape what did he say? I don't remember what he said. But imagine where we would be and what kind of information ecosystem we would be in if Elon hadn't bought X. Or Twitter at the time. But now we'll go to your comments and then to RUMBLE. Todd says, yeah, everything is a backdoor deal these days. No one knows about it till they're screwed. And exactly, by then it's too late. And especially because we have another mainstream media ecosystem that makes sure you have no idea what's actually going on. Because in a lot of ways, it's not that hard to connect the dots. It's not that hard to see where one decision leads to another, that in the end it ends up screwing you. But because the mainstream media and so many people that continue to trust in the mainstream media, they're not able to connect those dots because they're purposefully making it harder and harder to see what's going on. Todd says regular everyday people are no longer driving the bus. It's weird. Elites doing weird things. Yeah, of course. And Todd says, I'm Albertan. I ain't no Crapadian. Good. Sean says, I was like, Guy, I guided and told my ex-wife how to start thinking politically. And it didn't work. Todd says, nothing wrong with Guy's thing, Nat. Come on. I said there's nothing wrong with his thing.
What thing is that?
Your iPad.
Oh,
but it was
iPad.
like a double entendre. Sean says, put up the East German flag and see how it goes. Exactly. Troglodyte says, ridiculous. They don't want country borders. But they basically don't really have money in the EU, and now especially less after yesterday's decision with mass immigration.
Well, and you got to understand, they don't want country borders. They definitely don't want provincial borders within Canada. Mark Carney has made it clear he's going to start nationalizing Canada. So that's the next step I'm going to see. But in order to do a lot of this nationalization, it's only going to be possible if he can declare a national emergency. And it would be even better for him if he can declare an economic national emergency, because then taking down the borders is going to be easy to pitch to the people. The federalization of natural resources becomes easy to pitch to the people. I really think he wants Trump to cancel the USMCA, so he has that reason.
Troglodyte says, getting arrested for flying your country's flag, freaking commies, and right during the World Cup again. Isn't Germany playing today or tomorrow or like the next day? It makes no sense if they're going to have that reaction. And then there's millions of people with flags because a team won.
They don't have any problem with it. If the left owns the flag within the country, they have absolutely no problem with it. But if they view it as a right-wing symbol of national pride, they have a huge problem with it. And this is a double standard.
Of course it is. That's all they work in. They all work in double standards.
Yeah.
Sean says, aren't there more European-looking Mexicans in Mexico City, like blue eyes and blonde-haired? Yes, but not so much as in the north. For example, in Jalisco, in Guadalajara, a lot of people that you wouldn't think are Mexican, and a lot of people do get mistaken a lot of the time. But towards the north, there are more blonder people. But also, I mean, even you were surprised how different Mexico looks from how you imagine it, or most people imagine Mexico to look like.
Yeah.
Sean says, if Mexico ever bans its flag, just come to California. You'll find plenty of them here. And Sean also says, have you guys seen the Pride combo national flag, like the Mexican bird on a Pride Progress flag or maple leaf on the, yes, we have on the Pride Progress flag. I mean, they've ruined most flags by doing that, yes. Because again, they want that to take over.
Yeah.
Satis Maximus says, I'm the only guy posting on your YouTube link, so not hard to find me. Okay, so we'll look for you that way. Thank you so much. And William Abel says, the German people are disarmed. Never let them disarm you. Never give up your right to self-defense, or you'll get the government that will oppress you. Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be,
and that's why they do
it's obvious what Canada's strategy for this. They're trying to do this firearms confiscation. Maybe they can't do it quite yet, but once they flood mass migration in there, even to a further extent, they're going to say, in the name of safety, we have to do this. Because the violent crimes are going up, but they're the ones that cause the violent crimes to go up through mass immigration. And this is how a lot of these countries within the EU have already done it and are currently stripping freedoms away from their citizens.
Satis Maximus says, sent you a couple of memes on your X link conversation. Thank you. So that's how we will find you. And Troglodyte says, joining the EU will be a disaster for Canada. The libtards on X are so clueless. You should see the ones on Threads. Those are 1,000 times worse. Not that I have Threads, but I get to see some of them sometimes. People are insane over there. But now let's go to RUMBLE. We do have a lot of comments over there that we will read, and also a few stories left. Hopefully the sound works. Again, RUMBLE people, if I end on YouTube and it's still not working on RUMBLE, maybe we'll just try to do it. Because once we finish the whole show, it actually comes back. The sound comes in for some reason. But let's go over there. 30-second wait screen. Before you go over there, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube.
Yeah.